Welcome to the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries, where history meets prophecy. I'm Elder Michael.
And I'm Officer Charmaine.
Yes, and today we are going to be looking at the Christmas lie. But Officer Charmaine, unfortunately, as you know, we're having some technical issues. So I don't know if we're going to last the entire duration of this presentation. But what can you say to
Yeah.
that?
So this is extremely bizarre because for the whole 2 weeks that I've been back here, the internet's been fine, it's been perfect. And today we seem to be having intermittent troubles. So if we do go offline, please bear with us as we get back online. So first of all, I just want to welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This is going to be another interesting subject, and it is rightfully fitting, especially for the season that we are in. Once again, it is an interactive session, so please leave your questions and comments in the chat. Don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe, and even share this video with your friends and your family. Get them to join us, especially now because we're coming in, well, we are in the dark season. Actually, we're in the heart of the dark season. And it's important for people to understand why they should not be celebrating these holidays, especially Christmas.
That is a very important point for the Jacobites, the children of slavery, to understand that Christmas does nothing constructive for us. It's I like to think of it as brainwashing and indoctrination, and we will prove that later. But this is not. It is also, Officer Sherman, a very racist um, event, and we will prove this
Mhm.
also in this presentation, because even I did not even look at it in that regard previously. But once I started to analyze it, I started to see that what I call it the Masonic Judeo Christian establishment, what they're actually trying to do is to replace the culture of the children of Israel, the Israelites, the children, the descendants of Jacob, with this, I don't know what you call it, with another Jesus that they're trying to invent. So we're going to explore all this in time, but I think we should begin at the beginning, because this is not something that happens right away. There's a gradual build up to it from the beginning of the year all the way to the end of the year, and we're going to unfold this piecemeal.
Absolutely. Once again, welcome everyone. I saw Hilaire's with us, Sophie, Arnett. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us, and let's get into this session. So let's have the first slide, moderator. Thank you. So when we look at the the seasons that we currently experience, or all the holidays that we currently experience, we are looking at the ultimate sun worshipping. Everything that happens, whether you want to call it paganism, whether you want to call it Christianity, or once it's not Israel, you are literally worshipping the sun in one way or another. And you can actually look at this wheel of the year, and you can see how it's nicely divided up into an 8-point star, which actually represents the sun. And each segment falls into, say, autumn, winter, spring, summer, a different season. So this is why we look at, the season of worshiping, the seasons of lies. It is so incredibly deep, and it goes way beyond what, Christmas or even New Year's, but you'll have, we'll look at all of that when we go through the slides. But this is so incredibly deep, and they just change the name and put flowers on it, a nice fluff, and then package it so that everybody can partake in it. And that is the ultimate goal. And this is what we need to, really look at, and especially what you're saying, Elder Michael, with the whole brainwashing situation. And this is what's happening.
It's very, very, very effective in the way it is presented by, like I said, and I'll keep repeating, the Masonic Judeo Christian establishment. what they do is engage in witchcraft. It's all about witchcraft. There is not one holiday in the Bible. The Bible, which is our Israelite history and culture, speaks to holy days. But they have,
Mhm.
and these are the Gentiles, of course, they have invented holidays. And in the process, they have expanded their witchcraft. Listen, you cannot be a good leader in the Masonic Christian establishment unless you are a doctor of divinity. DD is very important. That is your qualifications. Of course, there are some masters of divination as well. But the point we're making here is this entire program is designed with witchcraft or by witchcraft to overthrow the system that is in place right now by the Bible. In other words, to replace the truth with the lie. And they're doing that, or they're trying
Yeah.
to do that with witchcraft.
Yeah, and it is so incredibly deep. And I keep saying this, I feel like a broken record, but it's so important to recognize, because in all the witchcraft, in all the divination, in all the, whatever it is that they're doing, the conjuring, the, sacrifices, it's all about worshiping the sun. And, if you look at history and you study, like, people way back when, they all the cultures around the world worship the sun. And it's so incredible, because when you look at how the God, when the God of Israel gave us the laws, the statutes, and the commandments, he's telling us, don't do these things because these things are currently being done, right? So he's taken us out of those practices, those pagan rituals and practices. He's removed us from that. I mean, look at the commandment, thou shalt not worship any other gods. That's to say that there are other gods. I know a lot of people are like shocked. It's like, how could you say that? There's only one God. No. If there was only one God, there would be no need for that commandment to be written, that you should not worship any other gods, right? So that's to say that there are many. And these practices, they go way back. And like I said, it was all about worshiping the sun, because what people didn't understand, way back when, is that the sun changes throughout the year in different seasons, but they look at it as the sun being born and the sun dying. And then they get I remember listening to Elder Andel's lesson, they replace the SON with the SUN, so it's really confuses you. And going back to what you say, it really does a number on your mind, it does a number in your head. And that's why we get so caught up in this, because of the confusion.
And I think it is
Yeah,
worthwhile to reiterate the point that they are inventing a new Jesus, a Jesus that is not biblical, and a Jesus that looks and acts differently from the Jesus of the Bible. He doesn't look like his Israelite brethren, totally different in appearance. And obviously, there's nothing that he does that is biblical. So there is no, so why would they engage? Why would the Masonic Judeo Christians engage in this high level racism? Why would they engage in this hatred, this hate criminal activity, and call it Christmas and paint a picture on it that is so inviting? You're doing your grocery shopping and you're hearing all these Christmas songs, but nobody really thinks that it has to do with with trying to debase and to misrepresent the truth. They always think, oh well, it's just something you clap and you shop. No, it's evil, it's wicked, it's a lie, and it's racist.
it is.
Because again, and I
Yes,
keep saying it, they are trying to replace the Israelite culture with another.
absolutely. So the title of this lesson is The Christmas Season of Lies. But okay. All right. So they don't want us to talk about this, but we're going to get through this if it's the last thing we do. So bear with us. The Christmas season of lies. We can't start from Christmas itself, because to do that, we'll be doing ourselves a disservice, because it actually starts way before that. So we're going to
That's right.
take you through the months, and you're going to see that there are many holidays that you might still celebrate, and we're going to show you the lies behind them and how it eventually ties to the season of Christmas. Right? Some people want to call it Xmas, call it whatever, but this is what we are dealing with, because this is the great deception. And to start off with, we're going to start with January. So, January, everybody gets ready to make their New Year's resolution. They get ready for Old Year's night, getting dressed up to go out and party, to count down and celebrate. I tell you what you're celebrating. You're celebrating the opening of the door and the closing of another door. So the closing of the door of the old year and the opening of the door of the new year. January itself is the name given, well, should I say January New Year is the name given to the celebration of the god called Janus. As I said before, whether you believe that there are many gods or not, you are partaking in the celebration of the god called Janus. And he is the god that represents January. He's the old man that looks back and the young man that looks forward. And people celebrate him by making their New Year's resolution, by getting ready, by popping champagne, by fireworks. This is all in celebration of the god called Janus. Now, this god, or this month, is actually newer. There were 10 months originally, starting with March, right? So before January became New Year, March was the New Year. And it was March, went all the way down to, let's see, October. Was it October? December. Sorry.
December.
Yeah, it was December.
December.
Yeah. So
December the
each
10th
month,
month.
you could even hear some of them. They have the Latin version, or the Latin sounding for the different numbers, like Sept, which is September, and Oct, which is October. Sept being 7, and Oct being 8. Dec being December 10. So you see how that works. And now it's all changed because they added 2 more months. And that was to actually focus on the 365 days in a year that actually exists. So by doing that, they added January and February, which was very appropriate because, as I said before, it allowed them to incorporate the celebrations that was actually taking place during those times. And as I said before, January was given to the god called Janus. Has anyone heard of that? Or anything like it?
There's another dimension to it as well, because the guy that's looking back, of course, they'll call him, some people call him Cush, and the guy that's looking forward, they call him Nimrod, and we'll get into this a little bit later as well. But there is even a bigger picture, because it's all about that tree. And I'm not going to give away the secret right now, but just remember that tree is, let's just say, it's the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And so we'll leave it for now until we get a little bit closer to the climax.
Yeah, so this is really quite amazing. And remember, take note of these months that's coming up and some of the celebrations. We're not going to go through all of them. We're going to go to the ones that really make a difference in our lives, the one that you know people actually practice, and how it actually affects you and what it actually means. Okay, so let's go to our next slide. So that's January. Now we have February. Now February is a little bit more deeper. Now this is where the romancing begins. Okay, we're going to say the romancing. So what is February? February represents Valentine's Day. And Valentine's Day is the celebration of Lupercalia. Lupercalia, again, is another god, or a celebration to another god. And man, this, like I said, it's about romancing, right? Because you got to start the romancing before you get to the next stage, technically speaking. Back in the days, it was pure debauchery. It was the worst. Oh my goodness. I'm going to read I'm going to read something, okay? It's also based on the purification of rites. I have something here I'm going to read, okay? It says, at the lubricating altar, a male goat or goats and a dog were sacrificed under the supervision of the Jupiter's chief priest. So you have first the sacrificing of a male goat or goats, many of them, and a dog. So this is like a huge thing for them. So they're sacrificing goats and dogs. That's one point. Okay, and this is all tying into Valentine's today. So look at the pretty roses that you see, hiding all that mess behind it. And it says, after the blood sacrifice, two individuals approached the altar. So this is two young men actually, and their foreheads were anointed with blood from the sacrificial knife and wiped clean with a wool soaked in milk, after which they are expected to laugh. This is really bizarre, but this is what they did. Okay. And the sacrificial feast followed, after which the young men cut thongs from the flayed skin of the animals, right? So they cut the skin of the animals and they ran with these naked or near naked along the old Palatine boundary in an anti-clockwise direction around the hill. And what they would do, they would take these thongs and, the women will be there. They'll probably hold out their hands or whatever, and they'll be hit with these thongs. So these animal skin, they'll be hit with this because it was supposed to say that, it would help to increase their fertility. Remember, this is all about fertility and about worshiping the sun god, right? So that to me was just like really, I don't know, that's just really bizarre. I don't know what you guys think about that, but this
Well,
is what they've turned into Valentine's Day, guys.
but it's probably still being done behind the scenes.
Probably, yes,
And
because some people
today,
want to worship these things in their natural form.
right.
Sorry, Elder Michael.
But today we have, this is where people, the males and the females go out on a date, and they go to dinner and so on. The whole idea is for them to embrace each other so that they can move to the next level. And this is because it's important. Again, just to remember, just to keep the audience updated, we have to have a birth in December. And you can't have a birth unless you have the male and the female coming together to, make it happen. Let's put it that way. So let's go to the next level then.
Okay, so let's go.
Okay,
We
so this
have
one is,
March. Now, March is a combination, right? And it's a combination of different events that's taking place in this area. Sometimes you will find Easter added to this month, sometimes it falls into April. In this particular presentation, we've included it in April so that we can actually talk about other holidays which are represented in March. And again, it's all about fertility, it's all about debauchery, it's all about, making a fool of yourself pretty much in this ritual in order to procreate, to worship the goddess of fertility. But this is what it's about. Oh my goodness. Now, remember now, some of these holidays are more represented in different areas than they are in some. So some of you may not have heard of some of these, but at the end of the day, they all currently exist under Christianity, and that's why they're being mentioned. First of all, we have Mardi Gras. And I know that this is one of the celebrations that's celebrated a lot in places like New Orleans. But this is a celebration of wearing masks. And it's a carnival, but you can do anything because you're preparing yourself for a time when you will not be able to do those things. So you can do anything. So let your imagination run wild. I don't have to go into the details, but you can do anything. So and the reason why they wore masks is that you didn't really see the person that you were interacting with at the time. But that's another another story altogether.
and the important fact that our audience has to keep in mind is that all of this activity, these different activities, are put in place to brainwash you, to keep you away from the truth. So you're being indoctrinated, right, in a system of divination or witchcraft that is going to confuse you. In other words, you're going to embrace an offensive idea or subject matter. So things that you normally will not embrace. Why? Because it's fun to do so. And that's behind all of what we're seeing right here in this presentation.
Okay, so going back to Mardi Gras, the whole idea is to have as much fun as possible before Lent. Now, Lent is a time that they use to separate, for example, they call it fasting. They call it a time of fasting. So what they would do, they would give up the thing that they would like the most, that they love the most, such as meat for, I think it's about 40 days. They give up meat or milk or something. So before that, they would have, the Fat Tuesday, or again, the carnival, where they would eat as much as possible. They will cook up a storm and they'll get into all kinds of acts just before Lent. And Lent is the precursor to Easter. So they're preparing themselves for Easter. So this is a big thing. It's not just, oh, let's go and celebrate Easter. No, this is a big thing. This calls for preparation. And this, remember, they were doing hundreds of years before Jesus the Christ, right? But they tell you that this is all in preparation for, the death and resurrection of Jesus the Christ. It's like, no, hello, this has been happening way before when. I mean, Easter's mentioned one time in the scriptures, and it's mentioned because it's saying that this is the day, an event took place after this particular day, but it was common to the people of Rome, so they knew it. So anyone who knew about Easter knew that the event that took place was after that time. So Easter had nothing to do with our people. As a matter of fact, you'll see later. But as I mentioned before, Lent was about giving up meat or dairy or something that you really like for a long period of time. And so Mardi Gras was a time to binge and to pack as much in as possible, even to prepare yourself for this fertility and springtime.
Exactly. And again, it had nothing to do with the instructions of God. It had nothing to do with our Israelite culture. It had nothing to do with so the point I'm making is, what is it all about? If you look at it very carefully, you will see that it is witchcraft. You will see that it is satanic. And you will say to yourself, well, why are they doing this? Well, it's leading to something that's very important. You take your friend, your mate out to your girlfriend out to a date, and you guys have a romantic occasion, and the next thing you know, your girlfriend is pregnant. Okay, so now that's the next step. We have to move on. We're going down now. 9 months later, you'll see what happens.
Okay, yes. So let's go to that point. And this is so incredible. Why is it so incredible? Because this is in direct opposition to the instructions that the children of Israel were given for this time period. And it's so incredible because, they had the audacity to say that this is biblical and this is scriptural. But it's not. It's so, oh my goodness, it's so incredible. Okay. So first of all, we have bunnies and eggs. What is that all about? What does bunnies and eggs have to do with the death and resurrection of Jesus the Christ? It has nothing to do with him, but everything to do with Easter. It's fitting for what they are doing. Why? Because Easter is the celebration not only of the spring equinox, it is also the celebration of the Babylonian fertility goddess Ishtar. And she is the wife of Nimrod and the mother of their son Tammuz. It's really very confusing because there's this whole thing of the death of Nimrod, and then he resurrected in his son Tammuz, and some say it's Osiris, and there's so many different names. And as I said before, you take your pick, take whatever name you want, but it's about the death and resurrection of their gods and the fertility goddess, which is Ishtar. This is the celebration. But you know what the slap in the face is to the children of Israel? You know what the slap in the face is? And this to me, everybody, you should be outraged when you hear this. Because we have been instructed to keep the Passover. The Passover is about unleavened bread. Unleavened bread. We don't have any leaven in our bread. But what do they present to the children of Israel? What do they present to your children? They present them with hot cross buns. That is a slap in the face. It's like the buns have yeast in it. It's risen. They have a cross on it, which they worship. So it's their symbol of their worshiping their God, which they present to you. And remember, the cross is also, you look at the shape of it, it's in the form of a sun. I know it seems very rudimentary because it's round. It's like, well, it could be anything. But no, it's specifically worshiping the sun. Whether you want to call it the S-O-N sun or the S-U-N sun, it's worshiping the sun.
Not only are they worshiping the sun is associated with the serpent, and they go together. So it is, again, we have to keep remembering this. It's all about witchcraft. The evidence shows that Masonic Judeo Christians secretly work together in, as one body. They worship the same demons and they use the same cross of death. It's interesting because that cross is also called a swastika, and it's in the shape of that circle, which is the wheel, which represents the sun also. But this is secretly done behind the scenes in many cases. They don't explain these things to you, but what you will know is that publicly they will tell you that you will see them fighting against each other. So, and you're encouraged as the public to choose a side. For example, in the United States, you get the Republicans against the Democrats. And whereas we should be throwing them all together in the same trash can, you have to choose one. So the issue behind this is when Santa, the guy that's called Santa, appears, he doesn't appear as Republican or Democrat. He comes with his red and white. He pretends to be reading from the Bible, or to be given that act that there's a birth, that he's celebrating a biblical birth, when it's not true. So why then, the question begs itself, why do the people that invented Christmas, why do they use our Bible? Why do they call on the name of our brother Jesus? Why do they do all of these things? Why that it has nothing to do with us? It's our culture. Why don't they use their own family's name and leave ours alone? So therein lies the racist act of Christmas. Therein is an attempt to destroy what the God of Israel has put in place for his family, and others are trying to take it or remove it from the public. It is that simple.
Yeah, you as you're speaking, I'm thinking about, what the lesson that Elder just recently did. And when he spoke about, which is the truth anyway, but they stopped us. And you're right. They stopped us from reading. They stopped us from actually understanding what was in the book. And they took the same book and they lied to us. They took the same book. And as you said, they look in it and they tell you all these crazy things for us to believe in. But where did you ever see a hot cross bun? And where did you see a rabbit and an egg? In relationship to anything that we did that was spiritual.
I mean,
Wow.
we can
This
call
is
it
just
what it is. Where's their white Jesus? Let's call it what it really is. So I'm going to say they have no respect for the Jacobites, no respect for the children of Jacob, no respect for the children of slavery, no respect for our Israelite royal family. If we had taken somebody else's culture and delved into it and changed things around and twisted it and made it look terrible, they would be all over us. They would be calling us whatever. But my point here is there is another agenda, because if you are messed up, like today, the children of Jacob, they celebrate this Christmas because why? The words are so appealing. Merry Christmas, Christmas gifts, and all of these things, happy
Yeah.
holiday. It enters into the mindset and messes with your brain. And they use the N word and today, which 2 years ago or 10 years ago was offensive. How do these
Mhm.
things get to be? So we have to start looking at that robotic, or what I like to call, or what they call rather, artificial intelligence, the
Yeah.
AI process. All of this is part and parcel of what Christmas does. But people do not know because they are not aware of what is going on in the background. Again, I repeat, every one of the leaders, the religious leaders, they are or they have to engage in some qualification in order to do what they're doing as far as
Mhm.
concerned. They have to be doctors of divinity, and
Yeah.
divinity is voodoo or witchcraft.
Yeah. I just saw Tina and C. Bubba Smith both saying the same thing. Yes, Elder Michael, they had used our books to deceive us. Absolutely. And according to C. Bubba Smith, crazy deceitful. It is. It's really crazy how deceitful this system is, how it's been set up to turn God's people away from serving him, because that is the ultimate goal. And not only not serving the God of Israel, but worshiping the Son. So this is what, when you think about it, we have to take it more seriously. It's not just not worshiping the God of Israel, it is worshiping the Son. So all those that say, oh, well, I'm only doing this for my children and blah, blah. Yeah, you are worshiping the Son. There's no other nice way to put it. That's just the way it is.
I take it even a little bit further. You're worshiping the serpent, the snake, because that son is usually associated with the snake, with the serpent. And again, all of this goes right back to the book of Genesis, where in the Garden of Eden, all these things are played
Mm,
out. But
yeah.
what I wanted to point out, though, I've got 4 points that I wanted to bring out with regards to how they use Christmas in an attempt. I call them the wizards of Masonic
Mm.
Judeo Christianity to enslave humanity. Number
Why
one,
why do, why don't we get there? Because we still have a few months to go. Remember,
okay,
okay?
yeah,
So, for
I'll wait
example,
then.
yeah, yeah.
I'll
I
hold
mean,
off.
definitely, because I know those points are very vital to this
Yes,
discussion.
right.
Yeah. So we looked at March, and remember, everyone, that March was considered the first month once upon a time. And
Right.
the reason why we're stressing on the first month is because, as Elder Michael said, there is a time frame for everything to happen. And if
Yes.
you look at it, it's so perfectly set up, not just for worshiping the sun, but the birth of their sun god. So you'll see this. Okay, so that was March. We have there was see April. Sorry, that was April. Yes, May. May. So there are many names that are given to different festivals, and one was Beltane. And the reason why I put this one down is because it is considered one of the greater festivals. And I just wanted to tell a little story. This is a little personal. When I was growing up in England, in primary school, I specifically remember that we used to have a class called country dancing. I don't know if it was part of gym or PE, but we had a class called country dancing, and they had a pole. I was blown away because they had a pole like this, and they had like little ribbons on it, and each one of us, we had to weave and make a pattern as we danced around the pole. And I'm thinking to myself, how would you have known, even if you are here today, how would you know to tell your children that you can't do this or you shouldn't do this? Because it's not like they're going to tell your parents, oh, today we're going to do the May dance, the maypole dance, Beltane. They just incorporate your children into doing these kinds of divination, as Tina Jackson says. Stop using the children to practice divination. And this is what I had no idea. I would never have known it in my life. I still even know the words of the song, which is kind of disturbing, but I don't know why the mind works the way it does. But Yeah, so we were doing this dance, and this is part of the fertility dance that they perform, and they have children doing this.
It is
And this was
amazing.
when I was younger, so I don't even know if my little nieces and nephews, out there in England are still doing this, or where else they might be doing this.
It's amazing how they do these things. They try to make evil so much fun.
Yes,
You know, they
absolutely.
I don't know what kind of mindset. And there's so many things that some of them are so perverted that we can't even discuss these things publicly. But they make it such a fun, loving thing to do. They
Yeah,
make the nursery rhymes, and the little children are
yeah.
singing them. And I'm like, this is absolutely perverted and disgusting. And why? So, I mean, none of these people go to jail. All of these are criminal activities, but yet there's nothing there that people will sue them. But you go and you drive a little bit faster than you normally, and you get a ticket,
Oh,
$150.
oh, Tina remembers doing this in elementary school too. Well,
And
thank
so
God that
you're not
I'm
the
not
only one.
alone, because there was a point when I was thinking, did I dream this? So I wasn't alone. It did happen.
Yeah.
Anyways, um, so there's another point that I wanted to bring up here as well. It's I think it's a very valid point, but there is also a celebration called Mother's Day. And it sounds so innocent. Oh, what are you doing? You're buying a little gift for your mom, and you're taking her out to dinner. Maybe you'll buy some roses and chocolate to go along with that. Maybe you'll make her breakfast in bed. You want to appreciate your mom. Really? Okay, let me tell you about Mother's Day. Let me tell you, I'm going to burst your bubbles, guys. I'm going to burst your bubbles. Okay, so Mother's Day can be traced back to the ancient Roman festival. In ancient Rome, Mother's Day was celebrated with sacrifices and giving gifts to mothers. And as Christianity spread across Europe, the church encouraged people to honor their mothers on this day instead of going through the pagan traditions. Now, there was an actual, let me see. Yes, the ancient Greeks and Romans actually practiced mother worship. The festival for Sibyl and the festival for Metronolia both focused on celebrating goddesses, I repeat again, goddesses associated with fertility and nature. So Mother's Day is about celebrating goddesses again. That's why it's on these particular days, not your mother's birthday, or not for your mother, but for these goddesses. That's what you're doing. So it's just been wrapped in a pretty bow like everything else, and presented to you as a harmless, fun activity, as Elder Michael would say.
Right.
So, again, one thing I love about our nation, the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries, and our Elder Shadrach, because he takes our culture, our practices very seriously. He takes it very seriously. And, way back when, he says, no, whose mothers are you celebrating? Whose mothers? Don't celebrate that. Celebrate your own mother. And how do you celebrate her? When it's my birthday, I have an opportunity to call my mum and say, Mummy, thank you very much for not only giving birth to me, but looking after me, because you didn't have to, but you did. And I appreciate that. So because of that, I want to thank you. And you can give her a gift if you want, and you can take her out to dinner. You can enjoy your mother on the day she gave birth to you. And that is so much more significant. Guys, who's with me there? And if you have lots of
It's
children
the
like
truth.
my mom, then she gets lots of Mother's Days within a year. Isn't that awesome?
It's the truth. But like you
Yeah.
said earlier, they are worshiping another mother, the mother, a false god mother. It has nothing to do with the relationship between a mother and a son, a mother and a daughter. It's some image somewhere that they're bowing down to and giving gifts to, just like they do at the Christmas time with the Christmas tree, as we'll get into that later. And you will see that it has nothing to do with the tree per se. It has something to do with the serpent, with the snake, with trying to remove the truth and replace it with the lie. It's as simple as that.
Yes. So we unfortunately bust somebody's Mother's Day ritual. I think it was Karen Hines. She's
Mm.
like, there goes her Mother's Day. I'm sorry. Yes, it was.
Oh,
There goes
the
Mother's
truth
Day.
will set you free,
Hey,
Karen.
you know what? Now you have a real Mother's Day to look forward to. So, anyways, yeah, I'm so glad. I'm so glad because everything we do makes so much sense. And that's what it's about. We're not doing things blindly. We're not, just being led, by anybody for that matter. Everything has a meaning, everything has makes
Purpose.
sense, and it's written, so we're not making this stuff up. And that's the beauty of it. Everything we do is meaningful and purposeful. Right, Elder Michael?
Yes. So now we have the situation. We're getting closer to the climax of
I
all of
know. Isn't it exciting?
it. Yes. But it's
Oh,
important to go through them, because individuals think, oh, yeah, it's just December 25th. No,
yeah.
every day they're planning for you. Every
Oh,
day
yes.
they have something in mind that is going to bring you closer to that day of December 25th so that you can make them rich and make yourself stupid and poor. Simple as that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we have the month of June and pretty much June and July. June and July, they're pretty much the same type of celebration. But you can see that worshipping of the sun, the summer solstice, they're talking about the two longest days or the longest day of summer during the time of the summer solstice. This was being practiced way back during the time of the Stonehenge. But this is, as much as it is Christian, it is highly pagan, and it doesn't involve us because it has nothing to do with us. But the people back then, especially during the time of Stonehenge, they were serious about worshipping the sun. And this apparently propagated to all cultures around the world at that time. And it's so funny because there was no internet, phones, planes, or anything, but yet still people were practicing this. So you know that they came from one source or from one area
But let
originally.
us let us simplify it a little bit. People
Hmm.
would ask, what does sun worship in June or July have to do with Christmas? Well, let's put it this way: without sun worship, there is no fire, and without fire, there is no chimney, and without the chimney, there is no Santa Claus. So you can connect the dots here, but they're not telling you this. They telling you worship the sun, and there's fire to warm you up. And then, of course, with the fire, you're going to have a fireplace, and there's a chimney, and Santa's going to come down that chimney. I don't understand how this white man come down the chimney. He's big and fat, and he doesn't get messed up. His clothes are clean. He stays white. He's not black. I don't know how that happens, but nobody thinks about it. They put out cookies, they put out socks, whatever. I don't know. I don't understand it. But that's how it works. So keep that in mind as we go forward to the process.
Yeah. Yes, and let's look at this other picture for representing July. And I put this here because, um, like many of you, I'm sure many of you have been through this. There was a time when I used to love doing yoga. And when I started to look at some of the poses, I mean, some of the poses actually refers to a name. And this is why I say this thing is so incredibly deep. You have no idea. But there are certain poses in yoga which is designed to worship the sun. So I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, this as well, but it's in everything. And we have to be so careful because, we'll be doing a pose or, doing some kind of practice and we have no idea where it's from. And that's why it's so important to at least try and get the fundamentals of where some of these things are actually coming from, right? Because, man, you'll be worshiping the sun and then, trying to get to Sabbath the next day. And it's like, no, it doesn't work that way. That's why it's so incredibly important. But again, all about worshiping the sun. And many cultures find a way to do this. I mean, that you heard about the Aztecs, I mean, what they used to do, the sacrificial rituals. Did you know, and I'm sure most of you do know, that part of worshiping the sun back then was about blood sacrifice, and they had to perform blood sacrifice. And sometimes it would be, children, other times it would be the virgin, other times, it would be somebody that the villagers thought that was didn't belong there, or sometimes it would be slaves. But it used to be part of blood sacrifice. It probably still is today, but we just don't know about these things. But this is a huge thing. It's huge. Worshiping the sun is so incredibly huge that it's woven into every fabric of society. It's
There
tough.
is wherever you find a cross, the cross of death, there is sun worship attached, and people have to recognize this. I mean, like I mean, that's not part of what we're bringing out today, but we will mention it because it's relevant, and we'll get to more of the sun because when we get to the tree, the Christmas tree.
Right. Yes. So, and even looking at the sun in its zenith, during the time of the summer solstice, this is the celebration of the sun. Okay. So at this point in time, the sun's already born, but it's a celebration of the sun because of the length of the day. Okay. So let's go into some more. Let's go into our next slide. I know Elder Michael can't wait till we get down to those last few slides.
It's okay.
Okay. So the month of August, it's okay. The month of August is about the celebration of harvest. I can't pronounce that name, but the other one is Lamas. I think these are Celtic names, and they're about celebrating the harvest, right? So celebrating of the beginning of the harvest with events which are similar to the Olympic Games. And now I'm not telling you all to pull your children out of school or stop doing, sports and stuff, but I'm just letting you know that a lot of the Olympics or the sports that took place in this month, you notice that most of the sports for children is normally done towards the end of the school year, because you have that time for the summer to worship the sun. Anyway, don't pull your children out of school. Don't listen to that. But you see that there's a huge correlation between the children playing those Olympic Games at the end of summer, or sorry, in the middle of summer, and also the harvest. So this is all about celebrating the harvest using the Olympic Games, or should I just say games? Where I found this source said Olympic Games, but it's just really games. So they had all kinds of sports at this time. And this is really to celebrate the beginning of the harvest. Do you want to add anything to that, Elder Michael?
Well, I just wanted to let them know that the harvest has a more significant meaning than just reaping and bringing things in, because Thanksgiving is important. I don't know if you mentioned that yet, but Thanksgiving has certain dynamics to it. I don't want to jump ahead. What do you think?
Okay, yeah, we're a bit early.
Yeah.
You could mention that. We'll get there. It's
Okay.
coming up. It's coming very soon. But it's you know what, it is on par. As I mentioned before, this is the beginning, and that's towards the end. So yes. Okay,
And the
so
reason why I said that, because you mentioned the sports, and Thanksgiving has a very important sports element. Usually it's football, North American football. So that's very important. And of course, the food, like you were saying earlier, all of these things combined are used to worship the gods that they set in place for people to be brainwashed and, such like.
okay, I want to read this to you guys as well. So as I mentioned before, Lamas is it means loath mass, and it occurs around the beginning of August. And it says, opposite on the wheel of Imbolic, at Lamas, the god sacrifices himself before the goddess. Right. So again, the scripture says, "Thou shalt have no other gods before thee." Okay, but here it specifically says that the god sacrifices himself before the goddess, her sickle slaying him with his blood spilling onto the land to ensure its continuing fertility in the next wheel of the year. So again, going back to the whole wheel, going back to the worshipping of the sun god, going back to the whole idea of fertility. This is what the month of August is representing. The god moves from being the Lord of the light, which he is until Lammas, to the dark Lord of death, which he will be throughout the darkening half of the year. Hey, this, I didn't make this up. I couldn't. Anyway, so we move on to the next month, which is September. Now, September is the worshipping of the autumn equinox again. As I mentioned before, September is actually for the 7th month. So look how we are. We're now at the 7th month, even though, according to our Gregorian calendar today, it is listed as the 9th month. Remember, January and February was added to the calendar. So September was originally the 7th month. And again, it's a time to celebrate another form of the sun, which is going into the autumn equinox.
Not
Would you
only
like to
that,
add anything?
it's a time to prepare for the birth of that occurred at the time in the spring, uh, that originated, I should say, at the time of the spring. So again, I want people to connect these thoughts. It's very important, because if you don't connect, then Christmas is not going to mean anything to you. It's just another day. But if
Yeah,
you see
yeah.
it for what it is, you will see what they're trying to do to your soul. What they're trying to do to your mind, how they're trying to brainwash you, how they're trying to get you to leave your culture and embrace theirs, to leave your God and embrace their God, to leave the truth and embrace the lie.
Christine Joseph says, I always wonder why I must give gifts to my kids on their birthday instead of the other way around. Well, I know for my children, they will still demand presents from me or gifts. It's like, but mom. Anyways, but yeah, that's an interesting point. But it makes sense though. You're thanking the person that gave birth to you. So, but yeah. Going back to what you're saying, Elder Michael, you're absolutely correct. I mean, you look at where we are, the month of September, and you know what the saddest thing is? When you look at September, or when you look at the old calendar, it was more closely aligned to our practice as Israelites. And that's to say that the whole world, once upon a time, understood that March, April was the beginning of the year, because it was about newness. And if you even read some of the literature out there, you'll see that every culture would say, well, it was practiced in March, April, because it was the beginning, it was springtime, it was when birds came out, flowers bloomed, and everybody was happy, so it made sense. But then why would you turn it to the dark months? But that's irrelevant. The point is, you see that, yes, we have the first month, March, April, a very significant time for us, the children of Israel, highly significant. Likewise, September, October is another highly significant time for us. Highly significant. But again, there is so much corruption there that we don't even see it. That's why it's so important to turn to an Israelite, to learn about the truth, so that we can do things the right way.
Again, we have to remember or remind our viewers that there's a lot going on in the background. This is a guy, as we talked about going back to the days of the book of Genesis, that wanted to overthrow the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, and to sit in his throne. And it didn't work. This guy got kicked out to hell. Call it what it is. But we have a system of holy days that one day builds on the other to give us an opportunity where we could have a vessel for the Christ. On the other side, they're trying to imitate what we're doing, and they're doing not exactly, but they have their days throughout the year that they're building for the imitation of the resurrection of that demonic spirit, so that they can have their God as well. So these are, and I don't have a problem with this at all. What I do have a problem with is that they use our book to tell their story. That's where the lie comes in.
Yeah, absolutely. Annette Harris is asking, did Nimrod marry his mother? Oh my gosh, this is like so very complicated. It's I think
Well,
Nimrod
let's put it this way.
actually
Go ahead,
sorry, go
and
ahead.
I'll give a version. Okay, Nimrod
Oh, you're gonna tell
is,
your version
let's put it
after my
this way.
version. There's
Yeah, I just wanted you to go first, and then I'll say something. Go.
first of all, I just want to say that, when we talk about Nimrod, we're talking about, and these people are one of the same, because it's the same thing that's been changed in terms of name. And today we have the name Jesus. Anyways, but back then it was Nimrod, it was Horus, it was Osiris, it was Tammuz. And there was in Nimrod's case, I think it was Semiramis. He was married to Semiramis, and then when he died, uh, she became pregnant. She gave birth to a son, and then she ended up marrying her son. It was really messed up. Anyways, what's
Well,
your version?
I don't believe none of those stories because
Well,
I know.
that's the story that they tell, right?
Yeah,
So what are you
right.
gonna do?
That's the issue. This is why it is important to understand it's mind control. Mind control. You will tell a story. Even in our culture, we have parables, but the parable is different because you're simplifying the truth. In this case, you're twisting it around. So Nimrod is like the Christmas tree. It's associated with that, and he was, because remember the tree in the garden, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. That's the tree that was destroyed, right? And then that tree came alive again because the spirit of that tree is what gave birth to Nimrod. Then when Nimrod died, right, all of this is a mystery system. So the truth is hard to see. The precision of it is clear, but the truth is hard to see. But here's the deal. When Nimrod took the spirit of Lucifer, and then he got killed by his enemies, his wife promoted a concept of his leadership after his birth. For example, in Egypt, they went from Osiris to Horus. It's the same person, different body, same spirit, right? And this is how they did it in Babylon also, from, as you said, from Nimrod to Tammuz. But there's a lot of that people get confused about, because what they're telling you is, okay, it's the same man. It's not. It's the same spirit, the spirit of the serpent working its way through different individuals. And that's how it's manifested. But what his wife, who eventually became his mother, if you can fathom that, that is where you get the mother and the child concept.
Yeah.
The Catholic promoted that with, they call it Mary and Jesus, and they said Mary, the mother of God, and all that foolishness. Again, it's a big stinking lie. They're not telling us the truth, because between all of what they're saying, you will see the serpent from the Garden of Eden, who is trying to overthrow the creator of heaven and earth and put himself in the seat of power.
There's also so much more to that as well, because number one, okay, in addition to this whole death and resurrection, because the idea was that Nimrod had died and he was resurrected into Tammuz, and likewise Horus had died and he was resurrected into Osiris. But in that as well, there's the whole idea of fertility, because when you read the story actually says that a member was missing, because apparently he was hewn into like hundreds of pieces or so many pieces, and they found all the pieces of him, but they couldn't find his member, okay, his phallic symbol. So when you go out there, you will see things like the obelisk. The obelisk is in commemoration of Nimrod or Horus or whoever you want to call them. So every time you see that, you're looking at the phallus of fertility that was really worshipped by all of these different nations. And you go and you look in the big squares, You go to London, you'll see it. You go to, New York, you see it. You'll see them everywhere. And every capital will have that same phallic symbol standing there. And it's in your book there, the Spirit of Egypt in America, but it talks deeply about it. And it's just standing right there. And people are
But
worshiping it. And they have no
even
idea.
that, Officer Charmaine, is what should we say, a mystery story. It's not the truth. The point is, the truth is that his spirit is what they regenerated. His spirit. But in order to fool the people, in order to twist the story, they put it as the phallic emblem. But
But
it is his,
whatever, it really doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, they need a symbol to
yes,
represent what it is that
and you
they
can't
want to
show the
worship.
spirit. You
And
can't show the spirit. So you
this
have to show
is
something that
representing
healing.
what they worship in.
Yeah.
So, and it's out there, and people are worshiping it, and they have no idea. And it's everywhere, because even when New York or the US was being built, this was a gift from the old Egypt to the new Egypt, right? So, and they needed to do that so that it's always represented in these places, because it represents fertility. So there you have it.
Elder Dexter is asking, how does the ark and the fish, is it fish? Yeah, that swallowed the member of Osiris play into this?
Wow.
Again,
That,
another story, Dexter, that they're making up because, I tell you how it plays into it. Keep it simple. You have the situation where the God of Israel was not pleased, obviously, with what was going on in the world. Everybody was doing something contrary. So he flooded the entire earth. He said, I got to clean this up. He flooded the entire earth. Now you're coming into that fish element, right? But he didn't kill the spirit. He killed all the bodies. The spirit now still came back. And
yeah,
this is how the serpent got to be in Nimrod, because he was able to take on the spirit of the serpent, of the snake, and that was in the garden and did all these things. This is why he built the tower, because he said, you know what? If he floods the earth again, I'll
yeah,
be at the top of the tower and I wouldn't have to worry. You
yeah,
see, only a serpent thinks like that, you know. And obviously that's how it is. So now we have the water, the fish in the ocean are able to be there. So that swallowing the member is taking on the spirit of Lucifer. That's exactly what the story is telling you.
yeah. And it's also to do with the fact that the fish is a symbol of fertility, because it comes out in abundance. And as we said before, this is all about worshipping or fertility rituals while worshipping the sun. So,
Yes.
yeah. And the Ankh is another version of the cross.
Yes, the Ankh
So,
is again more perversion because you have the male and the female combined. The cross with the circle again, but that circle could be viewed as the serpent, and the cross is the emblem. There are many different elements to this, but it works because it's all about witchcraft. It's all
mhm.
about divination. And this is the point that people have to remember. It's not about service to the God of Israel. Whenever you see, again, that cross, death, you're looking at hell right there. And every one of those Masonic Judeo Christians use that cross.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And different versions of them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Some put it on their chest, some put it on their forehead, and God knows where others put it, but that's on them.
So we have another message here, and it says, this raises so many questions about Jesus the Christ. What kind of questions?
Yeah, exactly. I don't see the relationship.
Yeah, what kind of questions about Jesus the
Well,
Christ?
tell
What
us.
questions does it raise? If you could be more specific, elaborate, then
Yeah.
we can help you.
Because what we showed what we were saying at the beginning is what they are trying to do. This is Judeo
Hmm.
Christians. In other
Hmm.
words, Masons who practice Judaism and Christianity. These people are trying to use our Israelite book, our
Yeah.
Israelite Bible, to
To
bring
tell
in,
their story.
tell a story, and to invent a new Jesus where there was none before.
Hmm.
So why are they taking that? Is racist. That's hate crime. That should not be done in the
Yeah.
civilized society.
Yeah. Yeah. No, they really, they have taken everything that we are and turned it upside down on its head. And they will tell you all these things, and it has nothing to do with what's actually written. I mean, they still
Jesus was
worship,
not born in
they still
December 25th.
worship the Virgin Mary. It's like, okay, how many times do you have to give birth to say that you're not a virgin? Because I know pretty much that wasn't the case. But what do you say? What do you do?
Yeah. Okay, continuing.
Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so this is getting into the really, really dark seasons. October. This represents Halloween, which is also Samhain. Now, the name Halloween actually comes from the Catholic tradition at this time, and the church created the All Hallows Eve or the All Hallows Mass. Mass is a huge thing in their world, to honor those saints without specific days already set aside. Now, I should make it very clear that when they speak of saints, these are people that have died and gone on. So they're really worshiping the dead. So it should be dead, not saints. But that's
Right,
exactly what they're
because
doing.
we have to make this very clear that only an Israelite, whether alive or dead, could be a saint. Everybody else would be a demon in that case.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, there are many videos out there that talks deeply about the traditions of Halloween. We have a few on our on our YouTube as well. So you can load those up and you'll hear all the details. But this is like the worst celebration of all, because it really focus on manifesting the dead, focus on worshiping the dead, focus on encompassing the dead into their world. And the worst part about it, it's a tradition that is seeping into other cultures around the world if it hasn't already done so. And it's always focused on the children. I mean, I just, in my recent lesson, I pointed out that, in England, we never really celebrated Halloween. We more focused on Guy Fawkes, the 5th of November. Was it the 5th of November? Yeah, the 5th of November. So we've mainly focused on that. So we didn't have this whole Halloween of going to trick and treat, even though the concept actually was born in those parts.
Either way, it's still the same, and it's still evil because Guy
Of
Fawkes was
course.
trying to destroy the Bible, what that
Mhm.
King James was trying to
Or
translate.
the Houses
And
of
these
Parliament at
guys,
the time.
with all
Yeah,
their trash, are trying to destroy the content of the Bible by trying to
yeah,
replace it with something else.
yeah. And
Now,
as Son
just
of
to show
Israel
you
said,
how the spirit works, it's amazing. No matter
yeah,
what you do, you run into the same foolishness. Just a different day of the
exactly.
week.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to point this out, because it's not separate, it's the same thing. It's the spirit
Yeah,
of the dead,
yeah.
right? And Son of Israel says, and they use the pumpkin, of course. And a pumpkin is a very nefarious vegetable that we really don't participate in with, because it's been used for so many different, you know, evil practices all over. They use the pumpkin for evil practices. And this is like really, really disturbing.
The pumpkin is very receptive to demons. If you put whatever they're doing with the pumpkin and put it in the house or in the window or whatever they do, you would get all kinds of demons coming into your house. And trust
Visiting.
me, some of them are not going to leave. So
Yep, all
do what you
kinds
have to do,
visiting.
but you have to look at the big picture and
Mm,
see how the other side is trying to tear down our
mhm.
Israelite culture.
Yeah,
Again, we can make this point very distinctly because we know they're using our book to lie. We know they're trying to steal our history and culture. That should not be allowed. That is what I call a hate crime.
yeah.
That should not ever take place.
No, absolutely. Definitely. So yeah, so that's Halloween. There is so much to it, and that's a lesson all by itself. But again, remember, this is created by the so-called church, which is Christianity. They created this. It's part of their tradition. They've been doing it for hundreds of years. And again, they're trying to incorporate this into regular society so that the children of Israel can fall into that trap.
So now we're coming to the exciting part, right?
November.
I was going straight to
Thanksgiving.
December, but then you want to go Thanksgiving. Okay.
Oh, it's okay. We got November here.
Yes.
November, this is another one that we want to maybe at a later time go into more details. But Thanksgiving, when you really look at the history, is about the genocides of the native Indians by the pilgrims. So this in itself is very nefarious. The whole idea of using a turkey, when you think about the turkey as the symbol of the nation, why would you use a turkey when you have something? I remember when the elder did that lesson, it's like, why would you use a turkey instead of using the buffalo? The
Yeah.
country is gifted, blessed with buffalo.
Thousands.
And what do you get from the buffalo? You get meat, you get clothing, you get milk, you get, glue from the bones. You get so much from the buffalo. That is a blessing. And it's also represented in the book of Ezekiel, but that's another story, and I'm not going to talk about that here. But it's there. It's represented in the book of Ezekiel because it's an animal which is so well endowed with so many things that you can use as God's people. But no, they use a turkey in which, if you do the research, is actually a vulture. It's actually a domesticated vulture that people put on their table and eat and pray to or pray with. And I remember Elder Freddie, he did a lesson, or he spoke about this, and it was really good the way he set the whole scene. And he spoke about, what you're doing, what we do when we participate in something like this is giving thanks to their God, because Thanksgiving is giving thanks to their God, not the God of Israel. It has nothing to do with the God of Israel. You're giving thanks to their God. So, and they are thanking their God for the land, for their prosperity, for all the riches that they received. They received the land, they received the riches and prosperity. And when we keep it, we're giving thanks to their God.
Exactly.
That is messed up.
And it works for them, but it will not work for us. So these are things that we have to understand. So now we're getting excited here because we're getting to the time that all of these different holidays are going to come to a climax under this one. Look at that, what's on the screen here. It says Merry Christmas. These are the KKK, the Christian Ku Klux Klan. What are they doing? What is the chief element? There's the cross. And how do they do it? They put their knee, their foot on the neck of the child of Jacob. Why are these things done? But here is the big thing that I found out, and I didn't always know this, but I found out, and I would ask a question like this: why did the Christian KKK, why did they establish themselves at Christmas time? It was Christmas Eve in 1865 when they came out public and as an organization, as a racist organization. Why did they wait to Christmas time in order to come out and do the things that they've done ever since? And another thing is that most of the organizers of the KKK were Freemasons. All their racist acts were orchestrated by Freemason, by the Judeo-Christian, Masonic Judeo-Christian entities. So this is very important for us to understand. I believe, and from looking at it from my perspective, that the average child of Jacob, the average black man, should say to Christianity, go to hell, to racist Christmas, go to hell, and to Freemasonry, go to hell where they all belong. We should not participate in any of these three institutions. Never again. And this is why it is so important, because everything that we have been taught about Christianity is a lie, a big stinking lie. And nobody else on this earth will tell you this. This is why we understand it. Why do they use the church in connection with Christmas? Why do they use the Bible in connection with Christmas? Why do they use Jesus or the name Jesus in connection with Christmas? Why do they use church in connection with Christmas? It has nothing to do with December 25th. So these are the points, unless they have a hidden agenda. And I believe that they're trying their best to overthrow the truth with the lie. They're trying their best to diminish and to disrespect the culture of the children of Jacob with some other foolishness. And we are embracing all of this. Why? Why are Black people celebrating Christmas in the face of all this adversity? It makes no sense. We should never do it again. Never throw your money to the ones who are oppressing you. Simple.
Okay. You know, that is such a very powerful statement. Absolutely. And you know, you asked the question why, but there are answers. There are many, many answers. And number one, as we started, we told you that this whole system started from the month of March, April. 9 months brings us to December. Why was December chosen? Because it's the birth of their sun god. It's the birth of their sun god. So it doesn't matter how you spin it. We say Christmas, you cannot find December the 25th in the Bible. You doesn't matter how you look. Okay, many people are still
Can I,
wrapped
can
up
I,
in
can
that.
I,
Well, why
can
can't
I
we
interject?
celebrate Jesus' birthday? But it's the
Can I,
birth of the sun god.
can I interject on that point? I
Mm-hmm.
will say that it is the rebirth of the sun god, because basically the sun was there before. Now perspective. If we say
Oh,
rebirth, it puts it in a better perspective because it's that the spirit of that guy, Satan, that is
mm-hmm.
being reborn in Nimrod.
Yes, but
Okay.
also, you know, the very fact that, you know, they are focused on the sun. Remember, all their symbols are based
Yes,
on what the
rebirth,
sun looks like. So
rebirth.
they look at this as the birth. And so when they are talking about a birth, this is what they are actually referring to, their God. They're talking about the birth of their God. And everything that is done is for this moment. This is the big bang moment. So you have your uh, uh, Valentine's Day, which is the foreplay to your Easter, and Easter is where you have this the conception, the immaculate deception, as you put it, which I love. You know, yes, the immaculate deception, right? So that takes place in Easter, and
Yes,
that brings you 9 months later with all those little, you know, celebrations for the sun. That brings you to this point, which is the celebration of their sun god. They have
yes,
things like the Yule log, which is based on, you know, the child which is promised. You know, this is what it represents. And there's a whole 12-day cycle, because apparently it takes 12 days to burn the Yule log. And people say, oh, we don't celebrate the Yule log. Yeah, but they have a cake in that design on their table when they have their Christmas trimmings on the table with their turkey, you know, the voucher that they want to eat as well. So all of this is representative. But listen, it doesn't end there. We have Kwanzaa,
yes.
which is supposed to be the black version of Christmas.
Well, you know what? I'm glad you brought that up, also Charmaine, because Kwanzaa, in my opinion, is an attempt to blend the African voodoo with the European divination. It's the same witchcraft, all right, but because African is probably a little bit stronger, but the point is the European is more disciplined and more organized.
Mm-hmm.
So they're trying to blend the two. So I don't know who the guy is that invented that, but he's probably a Mason because
Yeah.
I see bits and pieces of the Judeo-Christian element there.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yes.
Yes, and you know, you're so right. I mean, look at the candles that they burn, and this
Yes.
is consistent throughout the whole Kwanzaa. right? It's a black, the black candle stands there so majestically, and
Yeah.
then you have the green and you have the red candles. Oh my goodness, you're right. This is pure voodoo,
Yeah.
pure voodoo.
So
In
this
the,
is exactly what we're trying to avoid. Don't
yeah.
use what the oppressor has put in place to to get you to be brainwashed with. Go and read your instructions coming from your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Leave the European, leave the Gentiles alone. Let them do their thing. And we have to do ours, because you cannot embrace the death, the dead with the living. It will
Yeah,
never work. You can't mix clean and unclean. It will never happen.
yeah.
So leave the truth. We have the truth. You can't mix it with the lie. It will never work effectively. So we have to choose one or the other. It's not like choosing the Republican and over the Democrats, because they both drinking from the same trough. Here we've got the lie, which is below, and the truth, which is above. Take your choice.
You know, the biggest shocker. Well, it wasn't really a shocker, but it's the I'm sure most people will find it so. But Hanukkah, apparently they say that it's a feast of dedication. That's what they call it.
Nope, nope.
But it's actually designed in the
Happy
same
New Year.
way as Christmas. It's
Yes,
designed as the same way. They
yes.
give presents, they give gifts, and it's always the same time around the same around
From the
December, depending
17th
on
for 7 days. Yeah.
yes, yeah. And this is what they do. This is their version of Christmas. So everybody, it doesn't matter who you are, if you're not an Israelite, you're participating in this
This
worship.
is why I use the term Masonic Judeo Christian.
Mhm.
And it is Freemasonry, it's Judaism, it's Christianity. They all work together as one demonic body. The
Yes.
reason I can tell you this clearly is because they're using our book. If they didn't touch our book and they stayed in their lane, I will never even mention them. But as long as they use our book, they're gonna have to deal with us. And I'm not a nice guy.
Yes, yeah. It's really crazy just looking at everything how it just builds up. Guys, tell us, what did you think about that build up? Did you all know that, Easter and Christmas were actually related in such a way? Did you understand why January was actually put into the mix and how February works? Let us know your thoughts, please.
Tina has a question there.
Yes, it says here, is the pyramid with the eyes a form of deception? Or, in other words, what does it symbolize?
Well, again, here you have the rebirth, right? And you see, in as we said earlier, you have that mother-child relationship that starts. It actually started in Babylon, but the Egyptians took it to a new height, and it was Isis and Horus. And today, the Christians, they have some guy they call Jesus. I don't know why, and Mary. But the point here is that this eye is what they call the all-seeing eye. Think about that
Mhm.
concept for a moment. The only person who would have that kind of power is the serpent from the garden, right? That's the first thing you have to understand. The second thing is that the pyramid, as the Egyptians used it, they use it as an instrument of death, right?
Mhm.
That's how they've used it. And again, don't take me at my word. Go and do the research. So you have death and the power of the so-called all-seeing eye working
I
together.
mean,
Again, it
mm,
speaks to the serpent in the garden.
yeah,
Yep.
and that is, especially with regards to the pyramid, how it was used by the Egyptians. I mean, the pyramids is such a powerful symbol, and they
Mhm.
used it to exonerate, to celebrate, to worship, to praise the dead. What did they do? They built these elaborate tombs where the sun can actually penetrate at different angles depending on which time of the year it was. But these are tombs, and they would have altars in the tombs where the sun will, bounce off. It's so incredible what they have taken that powerful symbol and turned it into. So yes, and again, as Elder Michael says, the eye is the all-seeing eye of Horus.
Yeah. And
It's about, yeah,
the thing
yeah,
about Egypt is the Egyptian has their system, which is very powerful, but it is they prepare for life after death. In our system, which is the Israelite or biblical system, we prepare for eternal life. There's
yes,
a difference. We don't die. We sleep, but that's a whole different chapter.
mm-hmm.
They have to die. And then they're trying to use, and they have to use witchcraft in order to regenerate that spirit. Now, this is exactly the topic that we're addressing today. This is what Christmas is all about. By using an evil spirit to dictate or to brainwash society so that they follow the instructions of the devil. This is
Yeah,
exactly how it works. It's as
yeah,
simple as that.
yeah, and there
So
is nothing innocent.
yeah. The other question here is, what is the meaning of the third eye? That tells you how highly spiritual it is. That's what the third eye is. In other words, you see what is unseen. That's why they called it the third eye. I will not say any more than that because
Yes,
the
yes,
whole big subject, you see
yes,
what is unseen, and it's real. It's
and
very
not
real.
with these two physical
Not
eyes
with the
either.
physical eyes. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but
Yeah.
that is an interesting one, and that's probably a lesson to do all by itself. And you know what, guys, if there is a specific subject that you would like us to cover, because we really enjoy what we do, but
Mhm.
we also want to make sure that we're doing things that you enjoy listening to. So if there's a specific subject that you would like us to cover, even if it sounds really outlandish, who knows, maybe there is some validity to it. Please put it in the chat, add it to the chat, make this really interactive. It's about all of us learning together, to get a common understanding, so that when we're walking this road, we're walking united in the strength of our God, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. So please, guys, yeah, put your
Yeah.
questions in there, put your comments in there.
And, and
So
before I go, I want to give a shout out to our elder Shadrach, because had it
yes,
not been for him, my eyes would not be open, Officer Charmaine,
yes,
because I didn't even, I didn't do a lot of Christmas, but still,
mm,
we ate the Christmas ham and stuff. But my
mm,
point is, now that our eyes are open here in
mm,
Israel, we could see what the other side is attempting to do. We can
yeah,
see that Christmas is highly racist. And
yes,
as such, we should have nothing to do with
nothing to do with it,
it,
absolutely.
especially when you have the KKK, which is walking and dressing just like those in the Vatican, telling us to have a Merry Christmas. Like, to
Mhm.
hell with that. And to hell with their Christmas. Want nothing to do with it.
Yes, absolutely. If you haven't seen the video yesterday, it is the power of the lie. The lie is a powerful thing, but dangerous to the children of Israel, to God's people. And today we're showing you another side to that same lie. It's the same lie, but this is a different side to it. And you can see how very powerful. I'm sure you must have just thought to yourself, but it was just Mother's Day. And now you feel to yourself, oh my gosh, I've committed such a crime by partaking in this celebration. It is hard, guys. I understand. There's another point before we sign off. A lot of people, we celebrate end of year party. Remember, those end of year celebrations are to the god Janus. It's so innocent, and so I don't know how to get out of it. Everybody's got some, you got to work, you got to send your children to school. But remember, you got to think about these things when you're doing that. They don't call it Christmas anymore, they call it end of year celebration, but it has just as a profound and significant effect, because it is in relation to the god Janus. You're celebrating the end of one year and the beginning of another, based on a two-faced god. But
And
thank you very much.
all that we're looking at from the perspective of that Officer Charmaine is painting is the reintroduction or the rebirth of the spirit of the serpent. That's about it. And if you can negate that process, you'll be good. And in order to do that, you got to find the truth. And the truth is available to the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries.
Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. And if you want any questions, answers, please fill out the form in this box below. And don't forget to send us your topics, your ideas. We really would like you to do that. We want to, really engage with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, our moderator. Thank you to our moderator.